Alright, second grade, so it's finally time for us to start painting. So on your paper, you should have already drawn this grid. It says brush strokes, dry brush, sponging, and overpainting. I also want to remind you guys that you are always going to be painting from your background first, and then work on what's closest to you in your foreground. The very first thing that I did today is I drew a circle in my overpainting details section. The reason why is because this is going to be the last thing that we paint on top of, and we're going to paint details on top of this, so it needs to have some time to dry. Alright, so brush strokes. Just reminding you how to hold a paintbrush. You're going to put your fingers here on the white squishy part. This silver metal part, you should not get paint on. If you do, you should wipe it off. And all of the paint should stay on the hair of your paintbrush. If there's any water on your paintbrush, just take a paper towel and just blot it off. If there's a lot of water, wipe it on the side of your water bucket. Okay, so with a relatively dry, not completely dry, but relatively, mostly dry paintbrush, I'm going to get my first color. So, with whatever color you want, you're going to do brush strokes first. So brush strokes is when you're exploring how big or how little of a brush stroke you can make with your paintbrush. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush in, and I'm not going to get that much paint. I'm only putting it on the tip of my paintbrush. You put that back so anybody else can use it. Now I'm going to work on making the biggest paintbrush stroke I can. And I wiggled my paintbrush out a little bit, and then I'm going to pull down. So that's the biggest brush stroke that I can make with this paintbrush. So now I'm going to get a little bit more paint, and I'm just going to put it straight down, and I'm not going to do any wiggle. So that's the average size, so the main size of my paintbrush. I'm going to get a little bit more paint, and I'm not going to press down as hard. Alright, so I can get a little bit thinner of a line, and then finally I'm going to get just a little bit more paint again, and I've got just a tiny bit of paint this time, and I'm going to almost just tickle my paper to see what the thinnest line I can get with my paintbrush is. So this one paintbrush can get all these different size lines. You don't need a tiny little paintbrush to get skinny lines. Okay, so now on to dry brush. Dry brush is when you don't have that much paint on your paintbrush and you can use it to add texture. So this has still got some paint, and notice I didn't get any more paint, but I can dry brush. And dry brush I can go in different directions, and it makes a lot of nice texture. So the dry brush is normally over another type of painting or another color, so you don't see the background. And this would be good again to do like on grass or something that has a lot of texture like that. So again, that's dry brushing. Sponging. So sponges, they have a yellow tip. They might be discolored at this point, so they might have different colors on them. But sponging is using a sponge to create texture. So I'm going to get some paint on my paintbrush, and I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on the edge of the sponge. I'm not going to load it up completely, but I'm just going to put paint a little bit on. You should never dip your sponge directly into the paint because it's a sponge. It's going to absorb all your paint, and then you're going to put it on there, and it's going to make this huge mess. So, okay, painting it on. I'm done with my paintbrush right now, so I'm going to put it in my water bucket. I'll remind you guys what the water buckets look like in a second. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm just going to press lightly to see how much paint is on there. And I can go in different patterns, and I can move my paint around. This is awesome for clouds, awesome for bushes. When you layer different colors on top of sponging, it looks great. So if I came back and I layered white on top of this, it would look awesome. When you're done with your sponge, you need to wash it out, and then put it in your water bucket so that everybody else can use it. So, reminder, this is your water bucket. You can put it in there so that anybody else can use it, or maybe in a smaller one, if it fits. It only fits in that one. Okay, this is where your paintbrush is going to hang out when you're not using it. Just go on your table to get all super messy. This is where it lives. So, when you are done with the paintbrush, you need to wash it out. Inside of here, there's ridges. You hear that? When you are washing your paintbrush, you need to rub this edge really hard against that edge. If you don't hear it, then you're just tickling your paintbrush. So, bring it out, make sure it's clean, wipe it on the edge. Try to get as much water out from wiping it. Put it on this side, but try to wipe it on that inside little edge. And you're going to get a paper towel, and you're just going to blot it off. There should not be that much water left in your paintbrush. If there is, wipe it off again. Alright, and then once you're done with it, you just put it back in there, standing up. Okay, if you have any other questions, just let me know. But this is the first couple things that we're going to do. And oh my goodness, I forgot details. Hold on. Okay, so now I'm going to use that same brush. I totally forgot. Overpainting. This by now should be almost totally dry. And now you can do details. So with that same paintbrush, I'm going to do some details on the edge of this. So I'm going to make it into like a beach ball. So get a little bit more paint. And when you're doing details, you really don't need that much paint on your paintbrush. And alright, that's my beach ball. Okay, so details are on top of what you're doing. You should have another color underneath. Again, when you're done with your paintbrush, make sure you're in your water bucket. Wash it off, dry it off, stand it up. Alright people, if you have any other questions, let me know.